3, 2, 1, go.
In from Nigeria, where the death toll in the Boko Haram attack has now risen to 110. Civilians were ruthlessly attacked by the Boko Haram fighters who targeted a village in northeast Nigeria. This attack took place during the local elections in Borno State. The elections had been repeatedly postponed because of an increase in attacks by Boko Haram and ISWAP, which is Islamic State West Africa province. The assailants tied up the agricultural workers.
And we're still on the aftermath of the NSAS protest, but this time from the United Kingdom Parliament. Aside seeking sanctions against those who could be found culpable in the invasion of the NSAS protest ground in Lekki, Lagos by soldiers, and the shooting that followed, UK Parliament is also concerned about how development funds received by Nigeria are spent. This is part of the issues that arose while the Parliament debated the petition that demanded...
Well, here is Diego Maradona speaking to the BBC back in 2006.
I ought to thank the guy upstairs, the beard, as I call him. He gives me opportunities, and I make the most of it. And I give my all to make the most of it.
Well, crowds have been gathering outside the private resort in Buenos Aires in Argentina where Maradona had been staying after leaving hospital. You can see a mixture of fans turning up to pay tribute as well as the press as well.
Sources say more than 100 people have been killed in a brutal massacre in the country's northwest. Witnesses said militants on motorcycles rounded up and killed farmers who were bringing in their harvest in northern Borno State in Nigeria. No one has claimed responsibility, but jihadist groups have attacked the area in recent years.
The victims of a gruesome massacre laid to rest in a mass burial.
So we begin this news hour with breaking news from Nigeria, and the United Nations says at least 110 civilians have been killed and many more injured in an attack in the northeast. There have been funerals for some of the dozens of farmers who were killed while working in rice fields. Local officials blame Boko Haram fighters for the violence. Let's get the very latest now from Ahmed Idris, who joins us live from the Nigerian capital of Abuja. And Ahmed, this is a truly dreadful attack. What more have you learned, and why these farmers?
President Buhari, I want to thank you very much for traveling to Washington for these important discussions. It's a true pleasure to welcome you to our nation's capital. Nigeria is the largest democracy in Africa. As I conveyed to President Buhari in our discussions, the United States deeply values and appreciates Nigeria's role as a strong democratic leader in the region. The United States is currently working...
Football legend Diego Maradona has died. The 60-year-old Argentinian passed away on Wednesday from a heart attack. Long considered one of sport's greatest players, Maradona famously led his team to victory in the 1986 World Cup with what's described as the goal of a century. David Stokes looks back on his life.
He infamously referred to...
Welcome back to Messi Broken English. So I welcome everybody when we say it dey line now. I just want to tell you thank you. Say you get your time when you take come watch Messi Broken English. So another day for Messi Broken English don't reach. I just want to tell una how una dey. I hope say everybody dey fine. And I know say I know they miss that part to ask how everybody did, because now my concern with that. So we will continue for Messi Broken English. For Messi Broken English. So if you never subscribe to Messi Broken English, you know we won't miss this fantastic video when we say I dey upload every week. Try to subscribe. When you subscribe, don't forget to put the notification bell, because now that bell you will say no whenever I upload video on YouTube. And also, thank you for joining. If you never join, don't forget to join Messi.
from Nigeria, and the United Nations says at least 110 civilians have been killed and many more injured in an attack in the northeast. There have been funerals for some of the dozens of farmers who were killed while working in rice fields. Local officials blame Boko Haram fighters for the violence. Let's get the very latest now from Ahmed Idris, who joins us live from the Nigerian capital of Abuja. And Ahmed, this is a truly dreadful attack. What more have you learned, and why these farmers were targeted indeed?
Shocking indeed, Nick. We are hearing that the attacks actually happened in two villages, Koshebe, Koshebe and Zabarmari. The funerals actually took place in Zabarmari. What we're hearing now is that 27 others have been, more than 27 others have been buried in Koshebe. A hunt is now on for maybe survivors, but there are a lot of people who believe that dozens of bodies are still there. We've spoken with a few officials there, some of them emergency workers, who said they are now on the search for more bodies in that particular area. We are hearing also that at least 26 people have been taken away. The United Nations also is confirming that many women have been abducted by the attackers. So it's a dreadful event. And of course, one of the worst massacres we've seen in recent years after what happened in Baga some years back. So the Nigerian government is calling for calm, and the president issued a statement earlier today condemning the attacks. However, what people are saying in that region is that the security forces and government have failed to protect them, and there is little hope for them to see to it that they have that peace of mind that they require. Remember, Nick, a lot of people have traveled back home or have gone back home. They have left refugee camps or internally displaced persons camp in the safer areas of Maiduguri to their homes in preparation for the agriculture season earlier this year. And these people were the ones harvesting these crops. Some of them were actually contracted from faraway places as Sokoto to come to Maiduguri to help with farm work. And these are the people that were buried today.
These kind of attacks may have been perhaps not on this scale, but they've been going on for more than a decade. Why has the government not been able to quell them?
The government has claimed severally that it has subdued Boko Haram, or it has claimed victory over Boko Haram. But what we've seen in the last decade or so is a resilient and resurgent Boko Haram. First of all, it started in Nigeria, and from the city of Maiduguri, its influence spread across Borno State, across 40 local government areas of Borno State. In fact, it reached a point whereby most of the local council areas in Maiduguri were taken over by Boko Haram. The only safest place probably would be the capital city itself, because it's a garrison town. It's protected by the military. The military, make sure that the road linking Maiduguri to other parts of Nigeria, at least one road was kept open for most of the period Boko Haram was controlling large space of territory. The military, in collaboration with regional forces, have succeeded in chasing out Boko Haram from such areas. But what we've seen is that Boko Haram operates at will. And recently, last year, which was, of course, the deadliest for security forces. We're talking about hundreds of security forces killed by Boko Haram. And in order to reduce the casualty numbers on the part of the military, they withdrew from certain villages and smaller areas to form some what they call super camps. Forming those super camps exposed a lot of villages to attacks by Boko Haram. And that's what we've been seeing for more than 1.5 years now. And sometimes communities cannot step 2 kilometers outside of their villages without being attacked by Boko Haram. And these people, these actors, usually or routinely drive on motorcycles and invade communities, loot their property, kill and maim and abduct as they wish.
All right, Ahmed, we'll leave it there for the time being. Ahmed Idris reporting on that dreadful attack by Boko Haram, it seems, reporting from Nigeria.
In from Nigeria, where the death toll in the Boko Haram attack has now risen to 110. Civilians were ruthlessly attacked by the Boko Haram fighters who targeted a village in northeast Nigeria. This attack took place during the local elections in Borno state. The elections had been repeatedly postponed because of an increase in attacks by Boko Haram and ISWAP, which is Islamic State West Africa province. The assailants tied up the agricultural workers, slit their throats in the village of Koshobe. 110 dead bodies have been recovered, all of them slaughtered, along with 6 others with serious injuries. 8 others were missing, presumed to have been kidnapped by the jihadists. This attack took place in the rice fields near the northeast Nigerian city of Maiduguri. There were around 60 farmers who were contracted to harvest paddy in the rice fields. The victims were laborers from Sokoto state in northwest Nigeria, roughly 1,000 kilometers away, who had traveled to the northeast to find work. The bodies were taken to Zabar Mari village, 2 kilometers away, where they would be buried on Sunday. Last month, Boko Haram militants slaughtered 22 farmers working on their irrigation fields near Maiduguri in 2 separate incidents. Boko Haram and ISWAP have increasingly targeted loggers, herders and fishermen in their violent campaign. They have been accusing them of spying and passing information to the military and the local militia fighting them. At least 36,000 people have been killed in the jihadist conflict since the year 2009, while around 2 million have been displaced. The violence has also spread into neighboring Niger and Cameroon, prompting a regional military coalition to fight off the militants.
Sources say more than 100 people have been killed in a brutal massacre in the country's northwest. Witnesses said militants on motorcycles rounded up and killed farmers who were bringing in their harvest in northern Borno state in Nigeria. No one has claimed responsibility, but jihadist groups have attacked the area in recent years.
The victims of a gruesome massacre, laid to rest in a mass burial. Reports say the farm workers were attacked by armed insurgents on motorbikes while they were harvesting rice. Some were shot, others had their throats cut.
There were 6 of us in the bush. Then we headed back into the village. We were shocked when we got there. We found their bodies and that was where the main killings took place. Then we went through a nearby village called Gudo. We met so many people fleeing from our village without knowing where they were going. A huge amount of harvested rice was set on fire.
It's the most violent attack on civilians in Borno state this year. The region in northeastern Nigeria has been gripped by a jihadist insurgency for a decade. Both the Islamist group Boko Haram and a rival group, the IS-affiliated so-called Islamic State West Africa province, operate here. The 2 groups have been blamed for attacks on farmers and fishermen, whom they accuse of spying for the army and pro-government militia. But so far, there has been no claim of responsibility.
Boko Haram killed many of our people. We need assistance, we need weapons, because we have young men who can guard our farmers while they work. Please, please, for God's sake.
The Nigerian military has been unable to quell the insurgency, in which tens of thousands have been killed or abducted. There are reports that several women may also have been kidnapped in the latest incident, and a number of men remain missing, raising fears that the death toll from this brutal attack could still rise.
Let's cross straight to Lagos, Nigeria, and our correspondent, Funny Fachar, who is standing by for us. Funny, this is a horrific attack, and there's still some uncertainty about the death toll. What more can you tell us from where you are?
There are conflicting numbers, Claire. The Borno State governor has released the number 70, that at least 70
80 people have been killed. UN reports at least 110 people have been killed. So the number will be at least within that range, between 70 and 110. But if you zoom in on that number and on this horrific attack, you will also see a long history of over 1 decade of brutality carried out by militants, not only in the northeastern part of Nigeria, but also in other parts, especially in the north of the country. Now, this particular attack happened just outside of Maiduguri, 15 kilometers outside of Maiduguri, which is also sadly called the birth city of Boko Haram, because this is from where the entire uprising started over 10 years ago. Now, what we can tell at this point is the attack happened on Saturday, the burial happened yesterday, and after that horrendous attack, a lot of farmers actually in the region have left their farms. They are concerned and worried that another attack will be carried out by Boko Haram. Now, to put this in context, just recently and in this month, the Nigerian military has carried out a couple of airstrikes against militants, but the people here in Nigeria are frustrated. They say they're not doing enough because they're not able to stop this violence that's been ravaging this country for the past 10 years.
Well, no group so far has said it was responsible for these killings. The Islamist groups Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa are, of course, both active in the region. What are you hearing from there?
At this point, neither Boko Haram or any affiliate, be it of ISIS or of the Western African ISIS affiliate group, has said that they have done it. However, a local anti-jihadist militant group is saying that definitely this carries the handwriting of Boko Haram. And given what I've just said, that the military carried out a couple of airstrikes also within that area where this attack happened, in the forest, which is called Zambezi Forest, where is the typical hideout of Boko Haram, it is likely, very much likely, that this was Boko Haram. Now, to get back once again to the frustration here on the ground in Nigeria, people are saying that the military should rather be occupied trying to fight terrorism than trying to fight, for example, peaceful protesters that have been taking to the streets here over the last month, fighting or rather protesting police brutality. We all remember that the military was actually deployed here in Lagos just a month ago to trying to quell protests. So people are saying they should not quell protests against the government, but make sure that there is a stop and end to this violence that is carried out by militants as Boko Haram.
DW correspondent Funny Fachar for us in Lagos. Thank you very much.
And we're still on the aftermath of the NSAS protests, but this time from the United Kingdom Parliament. Aside seeking sanctions against those who could be found culpable in the invasion of the NSAS protest ground in Lekki, Lagos by soldiers, and the shooting that followed, UK Parliament is also concerned about how development funds received by Nigeria are spent. This is part of the issues that arose while the Parliament debated the e-petition that demanded the condemnation of the shooting in Lekki, an incident that turned the once peaceful NSAS protest on its head. TV's News Uzoma Onoye revisits this issue and now reports.
Petition relating to Nigeria and the sanctions regime, called
The petition marked 554140 relating to Nigeria and the sanctions regime was signed by more than 220,000 persons. It was prompted by what the parliamentarians termed disturbing events in Nigeria over recent weeks, which began with protests over the activities of police special unit known as the Special Anti-Robbery Squad.
They strengthen respect for human rights, the rule of law.
Leader of the debate pointed out several violations of human rights by SARS operatives to have pushed the youth to the streets. That even when government stepped in with a promise, the trust deficit between the people and their rulers drowned the possible gain. The debate recognized that the NSAS protest widened with passing days beyond the initial concerns about policing. Lekki shooting is disputed, but the account of the Amnesty International, which says that 56 people have died since the protest began, was enough for the parliamentarians to rely on.
The shootings at the Lekki toll gate have sent shock through many in Nigeria. For many, it seemed like the last straw. The government there has promised judicial panels of inquiry to investigate what happened. But there is widespread scepticism about whether these processes will be effective in holding to account those responsible for the bloodshed and the human rights abuses which have occurred.
They asked the UK government to impose targeted sanctions on those found culpable.
In the case where Nigerian officials are avoiding accountability over the killings of protesters, I believe that the UK should be looking to impose sanctions on state officials involved in the human rights abuses.
We must also take this opportunity to look beyond sanctions to a way in which development funding is spent in Nigeria.
Some shaded optimism in what Nigeria can become was not swept away.
This is a country whose wealth, not just in the oil off the river state, but in the imagination and creativity of its people, is witnessed every day in Nollywood, and perhaps more my style, at the great University of Jos.
The parliamentarians demand an end to the freezing of bank accounts and purported harassment of promoters of the protests. They pointed out the conspiracy of silence by men in authority over the years while citizens were being brutalized as being the stroke that broke the camel's back. Uzonna Ononye, TVC News, Lagos.
Football legend Diego Maradona has died. The 60-year-old Argentinian passed away on Wednesday from a heart attack. Long considered one of sport's greatest players, Maradona famously led his team to victory in the 1986 World Cup with what's described as the goal of a century. David Stokes looks back on his life.
He infamously referred to a hand of God, and the unique gifts of Diego Armando Maradona appeared to come from a higher force. Born in 1960 and raised in a shanty town on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, he became their national hero and a global football superstar. His impact in club football meant he was playing for his country as a teenager, a prolific creator and scorer of goals. Just 1.65 metres tall, stocky and powerful, his skill and balance made him unstoppable. The 1986 World Cup was his time. Maradona, the player, the man, encapsulated in an unforgettable quarter-final against England. Firstly, what he was to call the hand of God, punching the ball into the net. Then a second goal of scarcely believable quality, to many the greatest individual goal in World Cup history. Maradona's Argentina went on to lift that World Cup in Mexico, a good team made great by one player. Though 4 years later they lost the trophy as West Germany gained revenge in the final. But Maradona was thriving in club football in Europe, for Barcelona in the early 80s, then Napoli in Italy, whom he took to their first ever Italian titles, and where he is still treated as a favourite son. Off the field there was turbulence. He was addicted to cocaine and was banned from both club and international football for failed drugs tests, one of which ended his 1994 World Cup. In 2004, he spent time in intensive care after a heart attack, and his weight fluctuated during battles with addiction. He had 2 daughters through his marriage that ended in divorce, and a son born outside the marriage as well, Diego Jr. The People's Choice managed his country at the 2010 World Cup. He defied many critics until a quarter-final defeat against Germany again. He dipped in and out of club management as well. In 2018, he took over the Mexican second division club Dorados de Sinaloa, but it wasn't long before he returned to Argentina to lead top-flight team Gimnasia de la Plata. In true Maradona style, he stepped down after only 2 months in charge, only to rejoin again 2 days later. His last public appearance was at a game on his 60th birthday, where he appeared frail and left at half-time. A few days later, he was admitted to hospital, initially with anemia and dehydration, but things quickly escalated and he needed surgery to remove a blood clot on his brain. The operation went well, but less than 2 weeks later, he died of a heart attack. Whether Maradona is the greatest ever footballer is open to debate, but his incredible talent and contribution to the game's history make him a phenomenon.
Well, Teresa Bo is live now for us from Buenos Aires, and he was recently in hospital for a blood clot. Is what happened with the heart attack related to that, Teresa?
Well, the news are just starting to sink in here. Maradona is seen as a hero in Argentina, and people are just trying to get used to the idea that he will no longer be here. Maradona had a heart attack. He was discovered by a nurse. He was recovering in a gated community about 30 minutes away from the capital, Buenos Aires. About 2 weeks ago, he had brain surgery because of a clot, and he was recovering in that place. And this, in a way, comes as a surprise for most Argentines. He has struggled health-wise for many, many years now. He had suffered 2 heart attacks in the past, had bypass surgery in a way to try to lose weight, and struggled with addiction, as a report indicated, throughout his life. But for most Argentines, as I said before, he's a hero. People, we've been hearing some of those we have spoken to are saying that, for example, Maradona made them cry out of happiness because he helped Argentina win the World Cup in 1986, but now they're going to be crying out of pain. Another person told us that now Diego Maradona will be playing with God, but also the angels and the devils are going to be watching him play. Maradona has a crucial role in Argentina. The president has just announced that Argentina is going to have 3 days of mourning out of respect for Diego Maradona.
All right, thanks so much, Teresa Bo there. Our sports presenter, Peter Stemmet, joins us now on set. So grief and shock there, as Teresa Bo pointed out, in Argentina. How's his legacy going to be remembered, do you think, Peter?
Oh gosh, Sammy, you can look at Maradona in so many different facets. A complicated man, a genius on the football field. He won the World Cup with Argentina. He had drug problems, addictions, as we know, was in hospital. His weight ballooned. Then he lost a lot of weight. He tried his hand at coaching, rather unsuccessfully, nowhere near as successful as he was as a player. And something that we probably don't see in the modern game, he was able to go to a relatively small football club in Italy at the time called Napoli, and he won the Serie A title with them twice. That's not something that we are likely to see in the modern era, given the kind of commercialization that we have in football and the professionalism that we see today.
All right, Peter, thanks so much. After nearly 3 weeks of fighting in northern Ethiopia, a deadline imposed by the central government for Tigrayan forces to...
Well, here is Diego Maradona speaking to the BBC back in 2006.
I ought to thank the guy upstairs, the beard, as I call him. He gives me opportunities, and I make the most of it. And I give my all to make the most of it.
Well, crowds have been gathering outside the private resort in Buenos Aires in Argentina, where Maradona had been staying after leaving hospital. You can see a mixture of fans turning up to pay tribute, as well as the press as well. We also have these pictures from Naples, where he played for 7 years. People are chanting, there's only one Maradona. No one's going to dispute that. Fans have been lighting flares and candles, and you can see that this man is still a legend in the city. His picture and image is found in lots of neighbourhoods. He played there for 7 quite incredible seasons between 1984 and 1991, and crucially he won Serie A twice with Napoli, something that no one in the city has ever forgotten. Well, tributes have been pouring in from all around the world. Gary Lineker, now one of the top football presenters, but of course an England international as well, says by some distance the best player of my generation and arguably the greatest of all time. After a blessed but troubled life, hopefully he'll find some comfort in the hands of God. And then there's this from Pele, maybe the only person who you could have a conversation about who the greatest is about. He says, I've lost a great friend and the world has lost a legend. There is still much to be said, but for now, may God give strength to your family. Pele goes on, one day, I hope we can play football together in the sky. And from a current great, from a former great to a current great, Cristiano Ronaldo now plays for Juventus. Today he says, I've said farewell to a friend and the world said farewell to an eternal genius. One of the best ever, an unmatched magician, says Ronaldo. And then we have this from Lionel Messi, Argentinian of course, Barcelona star. His footballing style has often been compared to Maradona. They're both short men, both incredible dribblers. He says, a very sad day for all Argentines and for football. He leaves us but does not leave because Diego is eternal, says Messi. Well, Marcela Mora y Araujo is one of the best known Argentinian football journalists, and we've spoken to her from Buenos Aires.
a blow for the country, a blow for the sports world, and in fact, something that in a way shouldn't be unexpected, but really isn't that surprising. I mean, you've done a very comprehensive review of Maradona's life and ailments and career, but I think we came to think of him as somehow immortal or invincible. He always lands on his feet. I mean, in 2018, he had a close shave, we could say, when he was publicly taken out of the stadium on a stretcher, and I think we felt, a lot of us watching, that maybe this was it, and it wasn't. And I remember talking to Valdano at the time in 2018, and him saying, "Don't worry, Diego is like cat, he always bounces back." And his 60th birthday just on the 30th of October, so a few weeks ago, there were a lot of jokes here in Buenos Aires about where was Diego's party, and people were going, no, but he's different now, he's calmed down, there is no party. But even so, he did have a kind of appearance walking around the stadium of Gimnasia Esgrima, where he now works, which a local commentator said he was walked through. It was a bit like a zoo exhibition, and he looked incredibly unwell already. I mean, more unwell than I've seen him before ever. And just a few days later, he was taken into surgery and hasn't really been seen well since. So I think we can assume he's just not recovered.
And for more reaction from Latin America, here's Katie Watson in Sao Paulo.
Well, certainly here in Brazil, it has been the only thing that people are talking about ever since the news of his death broke. In Argentina, there's a 3-day mourning that's been declared. The president said that you took us to the top of the world, you made us immensely happy, you were the greatest of all, and there'll be celebrations of his life and a memorial later this evening in the centre of Buenos Aires before, of course, there'll be details coming out about his funeral. But here in Brazil, I think it's a really interesting discussion because, of course, as we heard there, Maradona was one of the greatest footballers ever. But here in Brazil, of course, there's Pelé, who was always the rival. Even Pelé said that it was sad news today. I have lost a dear friend. The world has lost a legend. There's much more to say, but for now, may God give his family strength. One day, I hope we will play soccer together in the sky. Certainly, the two men created a rivalry, if you like, between Argentina and Brazil. This is a region that is deeply proud of its footballing legacy, and there were two greats. And of course, one we've heard has now died.
And I guess we're seeing in the reaction to this news how deeply intertwined football and broader culture and politics are in South America, and in particular in Argentina.
Absolutely. I mean, we've heard the Argentine president making a statement. Even the former president here in Brazil, Lula da Silva, said that he was a footballing giant, and his commitment to Latin American sovereignty marks our time. I think that's what's so interesting, is that you've got these huge politicians, not just sports people, who are coming out just to praising his legacy. It is something that so many people here feel so deeply about, and Maradona really represented an amazing period in football for the region. So beyond Argentina, this has resonated, of course, across the region and the world.
And I'm guessing you've already mentioned 3 days of mourning in Argentina. I'm assuming there'll be a series of events planned, particularly in Argentina, to mark his life.
That's right. So this evening there'll be people meeting in the centre of Buenos Aires. I was talking to colleagues earlier who said that there, when the news broke, there were journalists even crying on television, that there was a real sense of a deep sadness, and therefore people were going out on the streets. And of course, Argentina is a country that has had a really strict lockdown. It's also been one of the worst countries in terms of suffering from COVID-19. But yet people are still wanting to pay their respects and start marking the life of the country's, if not one of the world's best footballers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Today I'm honored to host President Buhari of Nigeria at the White House, right here in the beautiful Rose Garden. President Buhari, I want to thank you very much for traveling to Washington for these important discussions. It's a true pleasure to welcome you to our nation's capital. Nigeria is the largest democracy in Africa. As I conveyed to President Buhari in our discussions, the United States deeply values and appreciates Nigeria's role as a strong democratic leader in the region. The United States is currently working to expand trade and commercial ties with African nations, including Nigeria, to create jobs and wealth in all of our countries. We hope to be the economic partner of choice for nations across the continent and all around the world. And you see what's happening with respect to trade and the United States. We are being respected again. I hope all African countries and countries throughout the world that we also will be supporting you and that they will likewise support us in our bid, along with Canada and Mexico, for the 2026 World Cup. We will be watching very closely, and any help that they could give us in that bid, we would appreciate. I'm pleased that Nigeria is one of our largest trading partners in the region, and we look forward to growing our trade relationship based on the principle of fairness and reciprocity. But we give Nigeria well over $1 billion in aid every year, and we have already started talking with the President about taking down the trade barriers, very substantial barriers to the United States trading with Nigeria. So we think that we are owed that. President Buhari has also taken several steps to fight corruption and improve the Nigerian business climate, and most of all to me, and again, is ripping down those trade barriers. These measures will make it easier for Nigeria and the United States companies to invest, and we will be investing substantially in Nigeria if they can create that level playing field that we have to very much ask for and maybe demand. I especially want to thank President Buhari for Nigeria's partnership and leadership in the fight against terrorism. He's been a real leader. Nigeria was one of the first African nations to join the coalition to defeat ISIS. And Nigerian forces are currently leading regional efforts against ISIS in West Africa, and doing very well, as we have. Nigeria is also leading African nations in the fight against Boko Haram and another ruthless jihadist terrorist group. You've been reading about them. They kidnap the young girls and young women, many of whom never are seen again. It's tough stuff. This summer it was my honor to meet with two brave young women, Joy Bishara and Lydia Pogu, who were kidnapped by Boko Haram in April of 2014 at the secondary school in Nigeria. I was deeply moved by their inspiring stories of courage, resilience, and survival. They really were two amazing young women. I told Joy and Lydia, my administration is committed to combating both jihadist terrorism and the scourge of human trafficking and smuggling. In the world today, there is more human trafficking than there has ever been. You can believe this. They use the internet better than almost anybody is able to use the internet. So think of it, in a modern world, in this world, there's more human trafficking and slavery than at any time in the history of this world. It's hard to believe. To protect Americans from these menaces, I have called on Congress to close deadly immigration loopholes that are exploited by terrorists, traffickers, and criminals. Just look at our southern border and our weak and obsolete immigration laws. They are obsolete, and they are weak, and they are pathetic. And there's no country in the world that has laws like we do.
And also, thank you for joining. If you never join, don't forget to join Mercy Broken English. And I know it's about to Mercy Broken English. Now my music, Mercy Broken English. Mercy Broken English. Mercy Broken English. What you say? Mercy Broken English. Subscribe. 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 I don't put that one as sugar when I always say hard. Subscribe. Okay. Merci broken English time with this. So now I will tell now. Bye bye. See you now for next video. Merci broken English. Merci broken English. Come hours. Come hours. Come hours. Come hours. It's a broken English. It's a broken English. It's a broken English. Come hours. Come hours. Come hours.